Hey there, it's the Submissive Next Door with your host, Dr. K. Go grab a drink, kick back, and let's get kinky. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Submissive Next Door podcast. I am your host, Dr. K. We are on episode 39, and today we are going to be talking about something that I think all of us can really relate to, and that is stress, specifically the science behind stress, the stress response cycle, and why it is absolutely imperative that we are taking the time out every single day to complete that response cycle with some sort of a pleasurable experience. And there is a lot of science that is behind this and why we need this is not like just something that we should be doing because, oh, it's fun, but we need for our survival to take that time out for ourselves, for pleasurable experiences, to relax, to recharge our batteries in so many different ways. And we're going to be talking about that. And then to close out the show today, I'm going to be reading something very special. During my classes that I used to teach a long time ago, my aerial yoga classes, and I'm starting to teach again, thankfully that the pandemic is getting a little bit better now. But this is one of my favorite chakra balancing body scan meditations, guided meditations. So I'm going to be asking you guys to bear with me and keep an open mind. I know most of my followers definitely have very open minds, which I so appreciate. So I'm asking for a little bit more of that so that you can really feel the embodiment that I'm going to try and help to create for you. So that's going to be a little bit later in the show, but as always, housekeeping, right? I always start off the show with some updates and different things that are going on in my world, just for those of you that are curious, as well as some different things that I've seen, going around in the communities and whatnot. Number one, a couple of updates. First of all, thank you to all my new Patreons. I always have to give you guys a massive shout out because you never fail me to come up with some amazing topic ideas and giving me some great feedback on different things. Recently, I just completed, and I've mentioned this before that I was on my last paper for my certified sex educator program, which is essentially my postdoctorate. I refer to it as my postdoctorate because honestly, this program was as difficult. I shouldn't say as difficult, as challenging. It was as challenging as my dissertation really was. And I feel like I put more passion and more energy into this program than I have ever done in any of my other programs. So it's something that I am so excited about. I completed absolutely everything. My supervision is all done. My papers are now all done. I got my transcript, and coming up here, what are we on right now? Today is when you guys all listen to this, it'll probably be the March 25th, but the following week after that, before the beginning of the next month, I have my certificate. So you'll see me holding up my little certificate here quite soon. I'm very happy about graduation coming up too in May. And this has been an amazing experience. And then it's time to put together a very large packet for ASECT, which is the national governing body really for credentialing and ensuring ethical standards and things like that. And they do so much amazing work and contributing to the field and helping educators, therapists, counselors and things within the sex ed field communicate and collaborate and things. So that's a big passion project. It requires 1,000 hours of additional work after you've completed your certificate program. And I'm very, very happy. I should say not after, but while you're completing your certificate program. So while you're an acting student member, you have to complete all of these hours to get your ASECT certification and then have recommendations by others in the field. It's a very large process. It's like a license essentially. And you don't need it, but it is something that gives a lot of credibility behind one's name. So I am putting that together and working with some supervisors on that. And y'all in my Patreon group, I recently posted my lit review that I did on ADHD and sexuality for anybody that wants to read it. I may seek publication for it at some point, but right now I'm just really excited that it's done and it was approved. I went back and forth with a lot of edits and extending different ideas and cutting out a lot of other pieces. So it's something that I'm very proud of. So if you want to check it out, it is in my Patreon. I also recently posted some information that I had been gathering on another project that I was collaborating with on another educator writer. and on praise kink. And so I compiled a lot of information and whatnot and a lot of different resources that I had found during that conversation and posted kind of a rough draft and things in my Patreon page for those that want to check that out as well. And once my friend is all done with her post and she gets that up and going, I'll be sharing that out among the community as well, because I love supporting, and she's just a fantastic writer. So please, please, please keep a lookout for that. Let's see, house. This y'all have been with me through this journey, so I'm just gonna let you know the whole house situation has been a pain in the fucking ass. If just if there's one I don't complain. I hate complaining. There's a reason for this. It is making me patient. That's been my life's shit, has been making me patient. Yeah, I've been the one primarily doing the majority of the packing at home, and pretty much anything that's like a laborious intensive job. I grew up basically on a farm, and there was a lot of physical labor that was involved. You know, when you have a large piece of land and you have to cultivate. My mom, to this day, she does everything on her own right now, and I'm so proud of her. But she has to haul all of the fertilizer. She has to get all of the different nutrients and things together. The worm casing, she has to, run out to the worm casing farm and get that stuff. There's a lot of, she has to go source out bat guano and all this other stuff to get her plants up and going. And she grows probably 99% of her own food. And in the coming years, I'm hoping that she'll be moving in with us and becoming, the extended part of the family and whatnot. And one of my things that is a big reason why we're doing this move right now, is I want to be able to give her her own space in the house that she has right now. Currently, same house I grew up in, and it's huge, and it's just too much for her at this point. And it's like I feel bad that we can't visit more often, and she's kind of by herself most of the time. Outside of her gardening. So my biggest goal for the last few years really has been, my mom took care of me growing up, and she was and is one of my greatest sources of happiness today. We had our ups and downs like all moms and daughters do growing up, and had our fights and had our, absolute shit shows with each other. And, as an adult now with my kids that are all growing up, it's and especially with our family the way that it is, my mom is so supportive, and she understands very, very much so why my lifestyle means so much to me, and she understands what it is and what it isn't. And so I'm very excited about being able to provide her with her own space, a secondary guest house or a guest cottage on the property. And that has been one of the reasons it's also taken a long time to find a new place, is places like that in our area of LA is very difficult to find. Like the housing market is stupid right now. You guys are all getting like the vanilla shit before we dive into the good stuff, right? But anyway, it's just been kind of a big chaotic sort of situation of trying to find something. And then since I'm doing all the packing and whatnot around the house, and Big Daddy, his caseload is just growing and growing and growing with his work. And it's to the point where like, our relationship right now is very much like on an understanding kind of basis, because we don't have as much time together anymore. So when we are together and we're able to, which and on one hand is kind of nice because we can really plan out a scene when we want to be together. And when we have that time and availability, we can really plan something out. And so we heighten things with texting. We use a lot of the digital mechanisms to kind of keep that fire and everything going. And when we are together, it's fantastic. But I'm doing a lot of the packing and things around here. So because of all of that, I can't get done fast enough all by my lonesome. So it's getting moved out a little bit so that we're able to get everything up and going the way that it needs to be. And it's approaching pretty quick. So I think I'm in a good spot where everything is ready to go. We're ready for photographers next week, ready to get everything on the market. And then we can start really doing a big push. So coming next month, towards probably most of next month, it's going to be a little bit chaotic and crazy, where my weekends are, it's going to be, showing house and trying to make sure that everybody, the kids and the dog and everything, is out of the house so that the other realtors can come in and do their walkthroughs and do whatever they need to do. Thankfully, we know that the house won't be on the market for that long, but yeah, it's like once you have an offer and you accept an offer, now all of a sudden there's these new time frames that start ticking down very quickly, and it's a little bit stressful. So that brings me to what we're talking about today. We're talking about stress and how to combat stress. So that's my stress right now, is just juggling everything under the sun. Grateful that my certificate program, my sex ed program, is done, because it wasn't necessarily like a bad stress, but it was certainly a stress of having something else on the plate that is now off the plate, and I can move on to a lot of other things that have been on the back burner. So yeah, that's a big reason that we were talking about stress today, because I personally am dealing with stress. And one of the other ways that I combated stress here recently was I jumped on Twitch. I had a fantastic Twitch show with For Sale 18 there on in his Positive Thought community. We went on during the St. Patrick's Day shindig. It was Truth or Drink. And of course, the issue being, like, all of us in the community are pretty open-minded individuals. And there was a ton of us. I think there was like maybe a little under 20 or so, roughly, of all of us creators sitting there just drinking and having a blast. I wore my whole Renaissance fair, like, green costume, which looks a little bit like, oh, what's the word? It's like a piratey kind of a vibe. It's like a corset, like a leather green corset, and off the shoulder little peasant sleeves and everything. And I went as a Guinness girl. Even though I wasn't drinking Guinness, I was drinking my Chardonnay, my butter Chardonnay, which is my favorite wine in the world, next to the AO, the Alpha and Omega wines. But definitely had a blast talking about everything, absolutely everything under the sun, right? And here's the thing, like, when I get into, and y'all probably notice this if you go watch the show. So I'm going to link the show down below. Make sure you go and watch it. Give For Sale some love there. And my issue is, like, when I'm one-on-one with people, I do great. I can have a conversation. I love teaching. I love being in a lecture hall. I have a hard time, like, getting started, but once I'm, like, in it, that I find my vibe and my groove, and I'm very, very happy teaching. Like, that is my, I love seeing somebody's eyes light up and seeing somebody's whole world shift because of some information I was able to share with them, or because I found a resource that they needed. Like, that is so much fun for me, and it lights me up. So I love being one-on-one with people, because then I can really do that. I can focus really well, especially on what they're saying, their body language, how they're feeling. And I try to create an atmosphere of support and comfort. And I can do that well with one or two people. I have a really hard time doing that in a large group. Like, group situations for me is so hard, primarily because I know I have a tendency to talk and talk, and that's the ADHD. And I have, like, this one thing that I know so much about, and it's something so random and so niche, right? And I hyper focused on it for 4 or 5 years, right? Like, and I spent so much time by myself, having kids and everything else, working from home, going to school from home so that I could be home with my kids. And I never really had the opportunity before to express or share all of this stuff I had been learning for the last 34 years of my life. And now it's like, oh my gosh, somebody asked a question about that one thing, and now I know about it, and I have to tell about it. So I have to remind myself, I'm constantly reminding myself to take space, make space. And that was something I learned in my IC program, where, if you recently spoke, or maybe you spoke a couple of times on a topic, let somebody else speak for a while before you jump back in. And I'm finding that's a very academic way of being, and it's a very educator mindset, right? So when you're in a social situation among friends, I'm not used to having that. And it's exciting, and it's new, and it's wonderful to be a part of a community like that. But I find that I tend to get very shy, and I close up, because, like, I never want to be seen as, like, oh my gosh, she just talks so much and she just needs to shut up, right? Social anxiety, it's also, like, very dysmorphic of me, right? It's it's just, I have to regulate myself. And especially when I'm drinking and whatnot, I almost tend to shut down faster because I am more hyper aware and conscious of how much I'm talking. When I'm just sitting here, I'm recording this, right? So I'm sitting here just talking to myself. I'm going to just run my mouth. So sorry to everybody on the podcast. Y'all hear me just run my mouth all the time, because I feel safe enough to do that here in a social situation. It's I don't know like the dynamics of the people right away. Once I get used to people, I'm a lot more relaxed. But when I'm trying to feel out a new social dynamic, it's like I'm trying to find my place, like where I belong in it. So I tend to just shut up and try to listen and be sort of the wallflower or a fly on the wall, if you will, so that I can try to understand it. And it's in fact one of the things that we're going to talk about here in the podcast on stress is one of the mechanisms by which we tend to address a stressful situation, right? So I'm talking about being really anxious and nervous, my anxiety, that's an internal stressor because it's very much like a me thing. My anxiety, it's a self-image thing. It's all of that. The external piece being that this isn't a group situation or a dynamic. And I have this tendency to either, well, we all do, right? When we get into the stress response cycle, it's either fight or flight. And then, of course, the last ditch effort, if you can't fight or flight or figure out what to do, is freeze or play dead. And my default is to freeze, to just not do anything and to try to feel out a situation. And I have a hard time with coming down out of that, with completing the stress response cycle, because I'll stay, my levels of adrenaline are so high. I have a really hard time with being able to manage the come down from that. And so I've had to get very deliberate. The more of these social interactions or podcasts that I'm going on, or Twitch streams that I go on, or people that I'm talking to and clients that I'm talking to, the more I'm realizing how important and how vital it is that I take that time to complete the response cycle, to tell my brain everything is safe, you're okay, and bring my levels down so that I don't end up in like a panic attack or an anxiety attack, and I can just feel like whole and maybe, I guess it's that sense of well-being, right? Like I want to feel that I have a sense of well-being at the end of the day. And I was noticing that the more interactions I was having with people since the pandemic is starting to slowly, recede, is my stress response cycle is up here all the time. And I'm not taking that time that I used to complete the cycle and get myself out of it. So I picked up a book. I picked up another one by Dr. Emily Nagoski. She's the same one that wrote Come As You Are. If you haven't read it, go read it. Stop everything you're doing right now. In fact, just shut off this podcast and go read or listen to the book Come As You Are. If you're a male, female, transgender, intersex, it doesn't matter. Go read this book. So just throwing that out there. So the other book that she wrote is called Burnout. And it's the secret to unlocking the stress cycle. And this book feels like it could have, this is me. This whole book is just how my brain works. And it's absolutely fascinating to me to understand the interworkings of that stress response cycle. And she talks quite a bit about different things, like how different types of stresses in our lives really affects our sexuality. It affects our well-being, but it also affects us physically, very much so. It actually diminishes your life expectancy. The more stress that you have in your life, I mean, that's not a surprise, right? That the higher your stress levels are, the more diminished your life expectancy becomes, because you have higher levels of adrenaline, cortisol, glycogen, all of these different chemicals going on in your body that are actually hampering your ability to have cellular turnover. It slows your cells' ability to absorb nutrients. We tend to also get involved more with escape mechanisms, like self-medicating, doing things that we're really are not the healthiest for us in order to escape reality. We might sit on our phones for 8 hours a day and try to avoid kind of This is why TikTok is such a I feel like TikTok is both a blessing and a curse for a lot of reasons. It's a blessing in the respect, just as 50 Shades of Grey was a blessing in its own respect, was it creates conversations, and it illuminates things. It brings things to the surface that we would not normally see anywhere else, that we would normally expect to run into. The drawback, of course, being that you better be really literate in terms of what it is that you're seeing and be able to discern how credible this information is, who is putting this information out. This is a topic like I have to teach it in all of my English lit classes and my composition classes, business writing classes. You have to understand what is out there in the world, why it's being generated in the way that's being generated, so that you can make intelligent decisions about whether you should take that information in or scroll on by. So many people that are on TikTok, it's such an easy app, right? We don't often think about that. They take things at face value, or it seems legitimate when it really isn't. And we end up in this situation where we're being fed. It's a game, right? It's all about commerce, and unfortunately, a platform like TikTok, you kind of are the commodity in a way, and then on top of that, you're also the consumer, and it is generating information that it thinks that you want to see, and the idea is to keep you there. They want to keep you there. The longer you're on that app, the more ads that they're pushing towards you, the more ads that you see, that TikTok is getting more money. It's just shitty that that's kind of the way that the world works. And they generate ads based on your emotional response. And when I was working for a corporation, I worked for a few corporations, but the last one where I did a lot of work specifically with the VP of marketing, and I sat in on what he called a distillery. And the distillery was picking apart a slogan and creating a slogan for a new product based on an emotional response and a problem, a perceived problem. It doesn't have to be a real problem. It just has to be a perceived problem that they're planting there and creating an emotional response. And for example, I'm not going to use that actual company, of course, but other companies that use similar tactics. For example, if you see an ad for how to learn a language, how to learn a new language, the perceived problem is that you could not possibly learn how to speak a new language any other way. That this is the number one way, that you are too stupid to go out and learn it any other way, that this has to be the number one way. And it's so much better because they do this and this and this. When you actually break it down, well, there's not really a perceived problem there. There's 100 different ways to learn a language, and it's actually based on the person and how their learning style actually exists. How best do they learn? Are they kinetic learner? Are they auditory? All of these different things that actually play into it, but they're not pushing that information. They're pushing this idea that you are not capable of doing something on your own. And that's how TikTok and all of these other mechanisms are. So my point being, I'm making a roundabout here thing. We're coming back, I promise. The gist that I'm trying to make here is that when we are allowing ourselves, we're in this heightened state of stress because of our job, because of our families, because we have responsibilities, because life, right? Life, maybe we have health problems on top of it. Hey, I'm one of them. Between having my own mental health, right? I have my anxiety, I have my ADHD. And then on top of that, I also have the fact that, I'm a woman in the world, and that comes with a slew of its own issues. And when you then you look at, you have all these other people in the world, all these other populations, that you throw that on top of being queer, on top of being gay, on top of being intersex, on top of being BIPOC, on top of being trans. You have all of that. It's mind-boggling that we as a society are still in existence because of the amount of just shit that gets poured on us by the media, by what we are being pushed and fed through on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, on the news, on everywhere that we see. So we have to become aware that we have all of that, all these factors, both the internal, the external, all of it. And that we have to take charge of regenerating our own well-being, that we have to take those moments out each day to basically shut the brain down and say, okay, all these stresses are going on in the world, all these things are happening, but we're safe. Everything's okay. Everything is fine. we can rest. We have to do that, or else we're in such a heightened state all the time. That's when we hit burnout, and we end up doing things that we normally wouldn't do otherwise. Maybe we perceive our relationship is just never going to go anywhere, and we feel helpless, and we start seeking outside, comfort, because it's an escape hatch from our reality that we don't necessarily want to deal with right now, or we feel that we can't deal with it. Maybe it is a job that we're so pissed off at this job, and we hate this job so much, but we feel like we're stuck, and there's nothing on the other side. There's no safety net. You don't have another job lined up, but you just are so stressed out that you can't take it anymore, and you quit. And now all of a sudden you're looking at a job that you just quit. You quit safety and stability, and you have nothing lined up, and you feel just frozen because you don't know what to do. You start trying to find different survival mechanisms. Before you know it, you start engaging maybe into habits that are not the best habits for yourself. People that are dealing with so many stresses in life, and then they turn to drugs, or they turn to alcohol, or they turn to emotional eating or fog eating. There's so many different things that are going on that we have to take the time to address, because if we don't, we are killing ourselves. We are hurting our bodies, and in doing so, we're hurting those around us, others that see how we're handling stress, whether we know it or not, whether it's your kid, your sister, your brother, your best friend, your coworker. How we are setting an example for how we are loving ourselves shows them how we want to be loved. Think about that. It also is setting the example of how we expect others to behave. And then we get upset because somebody else is doing that same thing that we're so mad at ourselves about. And you start having issues like the perception issues, right? You're putting your feelings about yourself on that person because they're doing the same thing that you're doing, but you're the one you're the one setting the example of it. It's just so much, right? So I wanted to talk about, where some of those stresses were coming from, and really kind of breaking it down a little bit further. So there is the stress versus the stressor, right? We have the stressors, which activate that stress response cycle. So you might have things in your life that are tangible. Maybe the things that are tangible are things that we take in through the five senses: see, hear, smell, touch, taste, and even imagine. There's external stressors like work, money, family, time, and anything from what are the expectations of us as a person within our field, within our career, to experiences of terrible things like discrimination and violence, or any trauma, things like that. There's also less tangible internal stressors. These are things that are like anxiety, like my anxiety. And if you notice, I'm looking off to the side. I have a list of notes, so I'm not crazy. I'm just reading. Thank you for indulging me. So you have things like anxiety, self-criticism, body image, identity, maybe even memories. This could be things like PTSD that are happening. All of these things that get activated in the middle of a stress response cycle. Essentially, our body is interpreting these as threats, which activates that fight or survive or flight to survive modes. And then in doing so, like I said before, it increases the adrenaline hormone, and increases cortisol, glycogens begin to rise. And unless our brain is given some sort of a signal that things are safe again, those chemicals stay rising, they stay active in our systems. And things like our digestive system, our immune system, our cardiovascular system, musculoskeletal system, reproductive systems, all of them begin to suffer because we know, science proves that those levels of those particular hormones and things rising causes all kinds of problems. You have the cardiovascular problems because with adrenaline rising, our heart is beating faster, our cells, our veins, everything has to work 10 times harder to survive, just to survive without taking a break. Even in exercise, I'm a huge believer in using exercise as a way to combat stress. But in order for there to be any muscle growth, toning to happen, anything like that, you cannot exercise every single day. You just cannot do it. And when I say exercise, I don't mean like taking a walk or something. If you're doing things like CrossFit, if you're doing weightlifting and bodybuilding and things like that, you have to have a day or two break in between all of that. in order for your body to actually recover and be able to heal, to regenerate, and to grow new muscle. It's no different in life. If you think of stress almost like a muscle, if you want to be maybe it's your body, right? If you want your body to be as strong as it can be to combat stress, and you can't get rid of the stress, there's just some things you can't get rid of, but there is a way that you can strengthen your body. But in order for that body to be strengthened to handle it, you have to have those rest days for that healing process, for your body to regenerate and go, oh, we have to get ready for this to happen again, so we need to repair ourselves right now. That's really what I'm talking about. Stress becomes, for a lot of us, it actually becomes almost normal. Why do we deal with all this stress? Well, it's become the norm, right? Like in society, it's expected that we just have stress and we just deal with it, especially as women, as a woman, as a mom. Oh man, like we are expected to be the fucking rock of the family. The dad is too, and or anybody else that's within a family. If you have a metro, that's a part of your family. If you have more than one dad, more than one mom, or non-binary, if you have just a parent or a guardian or somebody important that's a part of your immediate circle there, um, it, there's these expectations that you have to be the rock, you have to be the solid, you have to make sure that everything is taken care of. And we are bred to believe that we have to give and give and give and give. We have to keep giving, we have to keep going, we have to keep doing. And God forbid that we take a step back and go, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. You don't get that option, right? We put that on ourselves, that we don't get the option to say no. We don't get the option to take a rest, and we don't get the option to ask for help. That's just like not, at least for me, I can't speak for everybody, but I was raised very much as, I watched my mom, and my mom was, to this day, like I still compliment her and tell her she was everything to me. She was the one that I could count on. I knew that if there was a problem in the house, I never had to worry. I saw my mom freaking out. I saw her, scrambling like a chicken with its head cut off, trying to make something happen. Like there were times where we came home like from dinner and all the electricity was out, and we couldn't afford to pay the bill that month, and we couldn't afford to pay the bill for a couple of months. And I can remember one time being really, really little, and it was like 8 o'clock at night, and we came home and the electricity was all out. And for whatever reason, like my mom, she had tears in her eyes, and she put her head down for a minute, and then she's like, it's fine. Everything's fine. And she just went to work, and she called people, and she put together something, and she was on the phone with the electrical company, and she was making arrangements, and she was talking to supervisors, and she was doing everything she could to get this squared away so that we could have our lights turned back on. Next morning, the lights were back on. And to this day, like, I don't know how she managed to do it, because I knew we didn't have money. My dad had lost a job. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. It was just me at home. My brothers were off and living in their own world. And she always had a way to make it work. But now it's like, as an adult, I've gone to her and I'm like, I don't know how you did it. And she looks at me and she goes, I don't know how you do it. It's amazing to me that we are brought up with such a high level of like, we just have to be a warrior, and there is no other way. And that means you don't get to have a say for yourself. Like I knew when I had my kids, like I remember having the conversation with myself, this is it. I'm giving up my body. I'm giving up everything that I had planned to do with my life. I'm giving it up because I know if I don't have kids now, it may not ever happen for me because of my blood clotting disorder. And I knew that the older I got, the less likely it would be to be safe for me to even have kids. So I chose to have kids very young. I was 22 when my daughter was born, when my first was born. And had I had a different mindset, things probably would be a little bit different back, compared to it is today. I'm still grateful. I'm still so incredibly grateful for absolutely every decision I've made. It's made me who I am. I'm grateful for every decision that my kids are beginning to make, because they are making me a stronger human being as well. But I definitely, I see now, looking back, hindsight's 2020, there is a slew of things that I chose to do in my life and ways of being based on these types of situations, based on what society has put on us, and not even realizing it, and seeing it perpetuate itself generation after generation after generation. And unless somebody at some point in your generation, in our generation, takes a stand to say ourselves are a priority, 30 minutes a day to just sit back and masturbate, laugh, watch a movie, call a friend, hug it out. 30 minutes of that every day is all it takes to extend your life, to reset that cycle, to just live better. Like, I don't know why that is it's something that we let go by the wayside all the time, but we shouldn't. So we talked a little bit about freezing, how, part of that stress response cycle for a lot of us, me in particular, I tend to freeze, and just not do anything. And sometimes that means opportunities go by because you don't know what to do with yourself. You get so caught up in this feeling of, oh my gosh, am I good enough? Should I do it? All this anxiety that starts swirling around, and before you know it, it's gone. And it's almost like it wasn't meant to be. But maybe it was meant to be. Maybe it will come back around, and next time you'll have a better response cycle, so that when that opportunity is there, you don't freeze and you can see other opportunities, or you can see more beyond what it is at face value, and not be afraid of it. It's just things like that I find so fascinating. So I hope you guys are enjoying this so far. Let's see. When we freeze our brain, oh, here we go. A little bit more about freezing. For those of you that didn't know, this is some neurobiology. When we freeze, when the brain assesses, or this happens when the brain assesses a threat and decides that you're too slow to run or too small to fight, and your best hope for survival is just to play dead until the threat goes away or someone rescues you. It's a last-ditch effort in the response cycle, and essentially in the middle of a gas pedal stress response, your brain just slams on the brakes, and the parasympathetic nervous system begins swamping with the sympathetic nervous system, and everything just shuts down. So this happens if you stage fright. Stage fright is a really good example of the freeze happening. If you've ever been up on stage and you just start freaking out and you get tongue tied and yeah, say, or hey, I did a recital when I was a kid, and that was how I found out I had stage fright. I had been practicing for months on end. Little 11-year-old me up there doing a jazz dance, ready to go, get up on stage, and I took one look at that audience and I froze. I didn't move. And I just saw my mom in the front row, like trying to do the dance and like getting me to do it. I was 11. I was not like a 6-year-old. I was an 11-year-old, almost a teenager, and I freaked the fuck out. So, the freeze happens to us all the time. I'm sure you can think of a time when it happened to you. Life itself is always going to go on, and this is why it's absolutely essential that we build in everyday moments to complete the cycle. So Dr. Emily Nagoski references some case studies that have shown that physical activity, in particular, this is my favorite, that physical activity is the single most efficient strategy for completing the stress response cycle. Physical activity is what tells your brain that you have successfully survived the threat, and now your body is in a safe place to live. I think that is amazing, absolutely amazing. And it's a big reason why I find so much happiness in working out every day. I think why fitness has always been kind of a part of my life. And as I've gotten older, the more stress I have had in my life, the more I've gravitated towards exercise further. When I was younger, I used to exercise maybe a couple times a week. I enjoyed doing things like dance, but I didn't make it like a priority thing. As I got older, the more stresses I got working a job, taking care of myself, getting married, having kids, I've gravitated further towards working out because it's like the one space where I could find that peace. I have to focus on breath. You have to focus on muscle movements, isometric movements. You're focusing literally on focusing on every muscle of your body. That's vital when you're working out safely, right? So I found that more and more of that was helping to alleviate a lot of um, my tendencies. And I say tendencies because I also went through, when I was probably 18, 19 years old, it was about a 2-year stint where I was very anorexic. I was in a very toxic relationship. Thankfully left that relationship before it got any worse. But I was in a very toxic relationship at the time. And when I was trying to control my environment, and the only thing that I could control, at least it felt like at that time, was my eating. And I had gotten down to 87 pounds, and it was just absolutely not healthy. I was truly stressed out all the time, and I was working out, but I was doing cardio every single day, and I was limiting myself to maybe 500 calories a day. I was counting my calories very carefully. I had lost my menstrual cycle for about a year and a half, and I finally hit a point of absolute just breaking point with my relationship. I quit my job, I quit the relationship, and I was like, fuck this, I'm out. And I left and came back to my mom's house. And I was 20 years old. And my mom or I was 20, no, I was 19. I was turning 20 when I came home. It was my birthday. And my mom took one look at me and she broke down in tears, and she just started feeding me. But unfortunately, because I was still in that stress response cycle, instead of turning towards trying to make myself healthier, I turned to binge eating to try to combat everything else that was going on. And I was still stressful. I lost my relationship. I lost my job. I'm in a place with none of my stuff because I was living out of state at the time and came back. I was trying to get to know my family again. I was trying to get to know like friends again and didn't know my place. And I ended up going back into toxic relationships. Like I went up and down for a little while before I finally said, okay, I can't do this anymore. And I made a real change to focus on myself and my well-being. I went back to school. I started taking smaller steps to just bettering myself and my reality. And things got a lot better after that, and I've been on that track ever since. And it feels like since I had my daughter, really, when I had to really straighten my act up and try to figure out, okay, I can't keep running from place to place and running from my problems. I have to focus on it. I have to figure this out. um, that was when I started opening up about my sexuality and about who I was as a person, and finding pleasure in places that felt like it was more who I was, and feeling acceptance, being around people, hugging it out, laughing with people that I felt had my best interest at heart. When I started surrounding myself more with community, things really shifted and changed for me. And I think that's why I'm such a big proponent, and why you see me post it all over the place on my social accounts, that being happy, focusing on you, accepting, having a place of acceptance. It's survival, and I want others to survive and prosper and be successful with that so badly, because I was in such a bad place too. I know what that feels like. I think we tend to life reaches out for other life, right? And when you feel like you are so incredibly alone, your body is going to reach out in whatever way it possibly can to survive. And I think that's kind of what happened with me. So if I can provide space for others to seek out that happiness, like that's my biggest goal in life. No one deserves to feel the way that I did back then, nor does anybody deserve to feel like they are hopeless or that their situation is hopeless. There's always a path. There's always a way. Sometimes it just takes reframing. Sometimes it takes, analyzing and going, okay, is this a goal, or is this something that is just a desire that maybe can be brought about with smaller goals in place? You have to reframe things, taking it from that big mountain and making it into those smaller molehills. Even if one of those molehills, you want to be the director of whatever in your company's department, maybe the smallest goal for you to get there is opening up, an app and learning something new that's going to help propel that skill. Or maybe it's just, hell, getting up in the morning and you took a shower, and that was more than what you've been able to do the last 2 days. Like, those things matter, and reframes your definition of success, so that you can begin to build those feel good chemicals. You stop that stress response cycle, and you're able to see other possibilities that you might not have otherwise seen. Let's see. So some different ways that Emily Nagoski talks about other ways to kind of reframe this and create that end to the stress response cycle. Breathing exercises, yoga, kundalini, tantra, all of these different things. I think this is why yoga is such a powerful tool for other people to, it's not just, physical, even though it's very physical, especially power yoga, Ashtanga, all of those are very like heavy body intense types of yoga, but every bit of yoga focuses on breath. Your ability to connect with your body and with your breath is so important, and not enough people stop to practice it. Like, breathing is something that your body's going to do to survive every day. It's the one thing that, whether you want to or not, your body is going to breathe. It does it unconsciously, with the exception of something terrible happening or a medical problem. Your body is going to keep on breathing without you having to think about it, right? But very often, or very, very few of us stop to really think about, how do we practice that? Well, we already do it, right? Why do we need to practice it? Because that breath is what helps our mind connect to the body. And we have to practice that connection. Otherwise, it is easy for us to continue going, oh, my body feels stressed out. Whatever, I'm just going to keep pushing through it. We ignore it. But when we stop to connect our mind with our breath, with our body, we're no longer ignoring that stress. We're no longer ignoring the cries for help that our body is giving us by raising the adrenaline, by raising the cortisol levels. We have to do that. I mean, mindfulness is such a powerful tool that more people need to practice that. Other ways of doing it: positive social interaction. I talked about that. Laughter. I'm not sure if y'all knew this or not, but the neuroscientist Sophie Scott found that when we laugh, we use an ancient evolutionary system that mammals have evolved to make to maintain social bonds and regulate emotions. Laughter actually is an evolutionary marvel by mammals. It's incredible. I mean, dolphins laugh. They've proven like dolphins have a good time. Dolphins even masturbate, for God's sakes. But humans, like as a human, laughter bonds us. It creates connections and ties. It's so important to us. Affection. A full 20 seconds of a hug with someone you love and trust creates a chemical shift in the brain that tells your body that you are safe. The research suggests that just a 20-second hug, or really doesn't have to be 20 seconds. It's more like you go until you feel your body start to calm down. It can change your hormones, lower your blood pressure, your heart rate, improve your mood, increase social bonding, and increase the social hormone gosh darn it, and increase social bonding. I still can't do this. I'm sorry. And increase the social bonding hormone, oxytocin. There we go. Fuck, I'm going to edit that out. We can achieve this with pets. Petting your cat or dog for 20 seconds until you feel relaxed will also elicit the same effect. So, I mean, when they say an emotional support animal, it truly, like, an animal can absolutely have that magical effect of lowering your blood pressure, of doing all those great things. Having a cathartic cry, crying it out. Creative self-expression. The more that we create, the more that we allow our minds to just sort of flow without any barriers. That helps to also lower it, because when you're letting your mind flow with no barriers. Another great example: writing erotica. If you can get your brain to a place where anything that pops in it is okay, anything that pops in it is safe, and you get it out and you create it in front of you, you write it out, you create a drawing, you paint, you sculpt, you create a succulent garden, for God's sakes, whatever it is that you need to do to have that creative expression of letting your mind just go. That is creating that sense of safety, because your brain is getting the signal that there is no threat here, because it has freedom to roam. That's why it's so important, that creative self-expression. I wish they would bring back like arts as a mandatory thing, some sort of a creative self-expression as a mandatory thing in schools. That's, when budgets get cut, art and music are usually the first things to just go out the window. I think that that's just such a disservice. We need to have those things there because, God, being a kid, being a student is stressful as fuck, man. I see what my daughter comes home with as far as her schoolwork goes from middle school now, and hear about all the things that are going on, on the campus. And thankfully, we have a close relationship where she tells me, probably, I'm sure she doesn't tell me everything, but she certainly opens up about the conversations that she overhears and how she's trying her best to stay clear and keeping herself safe from those types of conversations. But or when she hears the conversations, to know what it is that they're actually talking about and make that choice for herself, whether she wants to be a part of it or not. And it's stressful. It's so stressful. But her favorite thing in the world is art and being able to draw. She draws anime. She likes to read. She reads so many graphic novels. She's starting to write them on her own. I think it's incredible to see that, but it's not something that the school, supports necessarily because they don't have the funding for it. Just things like that. I think if we need to be paying as much attention to our well-being as we are about our education, about academia, it all goes hand in hand. It's holistic. We are a holistic being. We don't come to the world with just one part of ourselves. We have to take care of it all, right? And last but not least, orgasms. This was the big one, obviously. I know most of this podcast has probably been less about sex than you had expected, but stress goes hand in hand, right? If we're stressful in the rest of our lives, we have a lot of problems in the bedroom. Everything that we go through in our lives ends up in the bedroom. Doesn't matter what it is. You can argue with me all day long on this. It is true. You have a bad day at work, it's going to show up in the bedroom in one way or another. For some of us, we use sex as a tool to relieve kind of some of those stresses, right? And so we may have a little bit more aggressive sex, maybe a little bit more primal because we need to get out those aggressive emotions. For others, if we shut down and we can't do it, we just don't want it, we have no desire, our systems are shutting down, and it's just not going to happen today. It happens to us all. I was in a situation like that. I'm in it probably more often than not these days, to be totally honest. And I have to, get right with myself so that I can have those moments of relaxation, so that I can be a much more open and reciprocal lover. And it's something that I think we all get into those situations where we're in our head and we're stressed the fuck out because we can't calm down. Sometimes in those situations, what I need isn't a back rub. It's not, oh, here, let me talk to you about it. Sometimes what I need to de-stress is, hey, let me go take care of those dishes. I know those are on your mind. I know that's something you really needed to get to today and you didn't find the time. Let me go take care of that. That's a fucking turn on, man. That is like, oh my God, you got rid of my stress. Let's go. I'm ready right now. And I laugh about it a little bit, and I almost feel like it's almost stereotypical, right? Like a woman, you see these cartoons where a woman is laying in bed and she's, like so turned on and whatnot. And he's like, yeah, what do you want me to do with you, baby? And she's just like, go do the dishes. Yeah, it's silly things like that, but it's so true. Like there is actual truth to that. If you want to help somebody that is in a stressful situation, instead of, sometimes a talk is great, but if there's a way to help alleviate the stressor in some way or take the mind off of that stressor, that is an amazing gift to give to somebody because it allows their brains to shut down. It creates a much deeper sense of safety. Emily Nagoski's other book, Come As You Are, talks quite extensively about that. I've talked about that on here, a lot too. But we're creating a kind of the nest of safety. You create you're going to have a much higher rate of desire, or much higher likelihood of being sexually aroused or being able to be mindful and in the moment when you don't have all those other things going on. So you create that safety net. You create a space for arousal to happen, for responsive desire to happen. And, responsive desire, of course, being, I hate using the word planning. I don't know why I do. I got to get over that. but you're planning out your day, you're planning out your evening. And if somebody can help plan out getting, working with you on those stressors before it gets to a place of sex, it definitely opens up the door to a whole lot more being able to be in the moment, because your brain's not over there thinking about that stressor anymore. So thinking about stuff like that. And then of course, masturbation, if you don't have a partner, or your partner's not around or whatever. This was something that I'm going to have to dig up my case studies on this, because there's a shit ton of case studies on, masturbation frequency, and, people that are compulsive about it versus, and also it being a point of contention within a lot of relationships. A lot of people tend to feel that if their partner is watching porn and masturbating, that it's some sort of a slight on their sexuality. In reality, I think this was in Dr. Ari Tuckman's book. What is it, Dr. Ari Tuckman's book, or is it Kinky Couch? Oh dear, there's a book. One of these books that talks about the people that, or the men, the cis males that are that masturbate more, actually have a higher rate of feeling more fulfilled in their relationship. But it's not a slight on the sex part of it. It's not like there's nothing wrong with it. It's actually a sign that the relationship is going really good, because they feel safe enough to do that as a stress relief. People that feel stressed out tend to not masturbate, because it does tend to be they're so stressed about all these other things that they can't get their mind focused on their body. But taking the time out to do mindful masturbation, where you're actually creating a sense of mindfulness, you're creating a space for mindfulness to take place, and you are masturbating with the concept of focusing on breath, on body touch, on sensation, it helps so much to relieve that stress. There's when I was in my IC program, it was very interesting. I think it was during the SAR, the Sexual Attitudes Reassessment course that I did, and 3 days of just porn all day long, of different types of porn, different types of sexuality information, really just helping to showcase the plethora of types of sexualities that exist in the world, within religions, within cultures, and how it just is incredible, the vastness. I mean, just it is sheerly incredible. And during it, there was a point where people were asked if they masturbated, and if they admitted that they masturbated in any of their relationships. Many, if not probably damn near all of us, admitted that there were relationships that we had been in where we did not disclose our masturbation to them. And I mean, who does, right? A lot of people don't. And then they were also asked about their attitudes about masturbation. Was this considered something that was acceptable, unacceptable? Why was it unacceptable? For many, it was religious reasons, that it was sinful. They were told that it was bad, it was wrong. It was just not something that you did. If you did do it, you kept it private. And then we were asked, was it something that we felt shame about? And of course, a vast majority absolutely, felt shame at some point in their life for masturbating, or for wanting to masturbate. And some, actually, there was a small percentage, like 2% or so of the participants in the poll, that said that they did not masturbate, that they had never or had an orgasm during masturbation, never chose to masturbate again, and just abstained entirely. However, when asked who masturbates, even though the majority of the people said that it was considered something that was sinful, or something that was wrong or bad, or they felt shame about it, that they did not disclose their masturbation to their partners and whatnot, somewhere in the neighborhood of like 90-something%, 100% admitted to masturbating at least once a week, and the reason being for the orgasm. Not for religious, not for ritual, not for pleasing the partner. There's a list of all these different things, but sheerly for the orgasm. That to me is really incredible information, because when we are stressed out, we're seeking relief. And one of the ways that our brains can seek relief through the stress response cycle, through completing it, like we already talked about, physical activity being the number one way that people can relieve the stress. It completes the stress response cycle. And then also we not only need the physical activity to help set that tone, but all the chemicals that go along with it. We need that drop, that natural drop. And we also know that hugging creates things like oxytocin in the brain. That's the bonding chemical, right? Masturbation, orgasm also heightens that particular chemical in the brain. So it goes to show, like, we are already gravitating towards that connection with ourselves, with having those moments. So what if we were masturbating mindfully as a stress relief, specifically as a stress relief? Like, we don't have to do that all the time every day, obviously, but what if at the end of the day, we're stressed out, we've had a bad day at work, and instead of pouring that glass of wine, or instead of going to the fridge and having, that giant piece of chocolate cake, what if we sat and had a 30-minute self-pleasure session, knowing that we were going to feel amazing after that our bodies were going to be more relaxed, that we were going to have all those feel good, juicy chemicals going on in the brain, and it be just that. I mean, whether you choose to use porn, hey, if you can do it with your partner, it's even better. Trust me on that. But if you can learn to take those moments and seek out an orgasm for well-being, in addition to it just being plain fun, or thinking of it as something naughty or something that is sinful or shameful. I mean, masturbating with the intent of giving yourself a sense of well-being, of knowing this is improving your health. It's helping to reduce your blood pressure. It's helping to reduce those nasty hormones, the adrenaline and the glycogen. It's helping to reduce the cortisol. It's like giving yourself the biggest, best vitamin in the funnest possible way, right? So just my 2 cents here, that masturbation, that having, and especially as we're entering, the spring months, where we're going to be going into April, and then we have Masturbation May. You're going to be hearing me talk quite a bit about masturbation all through the month of May. I've got a lot of stuff planned for you on that one, but taking some time to think about these different things. And if you're dominant, this might be a great opportunity to bring in something extra fun and naughty and special into the relationship, and knowing that it is something that your submissive may find very comforting, knowing that masturbating is something that turns you on, maybe knowing that they've had an orgasm that day. Hey, have you self-pleasured today? That's a sexy thing to help get them revved up for when you guys are together in a sexual way again. So just some different things that, posing some questions, giving some ideas about ways to utilize orgasm for wellness and well-being, and it not just be for just the fun of it, even though you should totally do that too. Absolutely, you should do that. So how do you know if you have stress that you need to deal with? Chances are, if you are, going through situations like you feel like you might just quit your job that day. If you know that you need to create some sort of a stress response relief valve, if you are finding that you're pouring a glass of wine or drinking a bottle of wine every single night, if you are finding that you are hiding underneath a blanket with a tub of Ben and Jerry's while you cry at night, probably time to start thinking about some ways to combat that stress response cycle. I mentioned that one specifically. I've done that. It's not the prettiest sight. So it is definitely worth taking the time out to go, how often during the week am I feeling whole? How often at the end of the day am I feeling well? And if you cannot mention more days than not where you are ending the day feeling crappy, exhausted, depressed, sad, chances are you have a response cycle, a stress response cycle that hasn't been completed in a long time. And it absolutely is a sign that you need to, like, for your sanity, to know that the world is not a crazy ass place, for your brain to get the signal that it is safe, that it is okay, that everything is beautiful again. Or maybe not even beautiful, but everything is just that you feel comforted in that moment in time. Like, your brain needs that break. Give it that break. Use one of these ways, or grab that favorite toy out of the bedside table, charge her up and go for it. And just know that you are giving yourself. One thing that I have found that is so sad in the world is we are so conditioned to not take a break. We are just so conditioned to go and go and go and go because that's how consumerism works. The more they can shove shit in your face and make you think you have a problem, the more they can sell you shit, the more they can sell you an idea. And that idea is not true because they're creating the stress in front of your eyes. They are creating a situation that doesn't actually exist. And it's important that you take those. And I say this in terms of, like I said, the marketing and things. This is how businesses tend to operate. Taking the time to recognize what it is and take that step back is absolutely vital. Humans, as humans, we are not built to persist incessantly. We just aren't. But we're actually built to oscillate from effort to rest and back again. We need 42%. This is one of the coolest statistics here. We need 42% of our time, 10 hours a day out of 24, to be dedicated to rest. And if we don't, our bodies will revolt and force us to take that time out. This is true. I cannot tell you how many times that I have watched Big Daddy go through a situation at work that is just killing him from the inside out. Like, he is so knee deep in a case that he can't see straight, and he's got a mountain of research and experts that he's got to talk to and depositions to take, and there's 500 people involved in the case and no one knows what the fuck they're doing. Like, it is so hard for me to sit back and watch him go through that, and to know that that's not just today. That's going to be the next 3 weeks until whatever needs to happen in a milestone for this case to go through, or until the case settles. And knowing that that continues and continues and continues, where he is getting maybe 3 or 4 hours of sleep a night because his job demands it. A lot of professions out there, from you have civil servants, you have people that work in the medical field, especially nurses. Oh my God, nurses and doctors. The amount of stress that they carry, and they are on the clock all the time. They go through, I think it's like a 24-hour or longer shifts and whatnot, where their bodies are just going and going and going and going. They're on the ball. You have to take that time to step back and to rest, and knowing that we need 42% of our time, 10 hours. I don't know about you. I can barely get 6 hours a night of sleep, like, at all. And then you go, and I know I'm trying to build in a half hour of a stress response relief valve for myself every day. And then you throw on top of that, wow, okay, now I'm stressed because I'm not obviously getting enough rest. Like, what the fuck? I can't seem to win. But I think if we just try to remember, number one, not everybody's body works the same. Some of us do need less, some of us need more. But learning to listen to our bodies so that we are able to find those moments and reduce that stress, I think is just vital. Like, just knowing, acknowledging, I need a break. I need to take that time out for myself. I need to do it for me, but I need to do it because it's going to help everybody else around me. That's what helped me start making that time and making it a priority, knowing that the more I was doing it for me, the more it was benefiting everybody else. And that was really important to me. That was a big shift. We also tend to have a human giver syndrome. This is Emily Nagoski's coined term, human giver syndrome. It tells us that it's self-indulgent to rest, which makes as much sense, honestly, as believing it's weak or self-indulgent to breathe. Knowing that all of the stress is creating all these problems in our body, but we're not doing anything about it. Like, it's not self-indulgent, it's survival. It is absolutely survival. And it's not just survival for you, but it's also helping to stand up against what the world is telling you. It's a way to rebel. It's a way to take back your life and take back the life of the right to live for everybody else around you. You are taking a stand against basically marketing in the world, against commerce in the world. You're taking a stand against what the rest of the world is telling you, and finally making a change and showing that you are a priority and that unplugging is important. So I brought up masturbation and how masturbation can be used as a technique to help promote relaxation, to help end that stress response cycle, and be a form or a tool to help you in those moments and maybe build into your day. Maybe it's not something that you choose to do every day, although me personally, I think starting the day off with an orgasm is a fabulous way. It's like a cup of coffee in the morning. Like it just kind of it charges you up. It gets you going, starts the day off with all those feel good chemicals. I know for a fact for myself, it makes the day so much better. It doesn't matter what people throw at me. I seem to just be able to handle it so much with so much more grace than I do when I don't have an orgasm first thing in the morning. So that's just me personally, but every body, every human is different, and I highly recommend you finding what works for you. Some of us, maybe asexuals out there, who choose to not do the masturbation part. Mindfulness is still a technique that I would highly recommend doing a body scan. And in fact, we're going to do a body scan here. It's going to cause my podcast to run over considerably, but that's okay. You don't have to listen to the body scan, but if you do, please let me know what you think of it. But I wanted to talk about, what mindfulness masturbation was specifically. And mindfulness masturbation is basically a way to connect your breath with the practice, the eroticism of the body, with connecting to the body and not leaving any part of the body out. I've gone to a number of yoga classes throughout my life, and all of them having different types of mindfulness, a meditation, a guided meditation, either to begin the class or to end the class during Shavasana. And I found that that was always kind of my chief complaint, is that when a body scan was happening, it was, going from the head to the neck, to the chest, to the arms, to the extremities, completely glazing over the fact that there's a pelvis, that there is your groin, that it's your genitals, that your vulva, your clit, your penis, your butt, your ass, like whatever, gets completely overlooked. It's like that's a part of the body too, and it's where the root chakra sits. That's a huge part of the body. It's a huge part of the chakra system, and yet we glaze over it and we just call it, as far as a chakra, it's like the sexuality chakra, the root chakra, the red chakra. It always bothers me, and as I've been in the more and more in the sexuality field, it's been really refreshing to see more and more people that do the embodiments, that practice much more of a holistic approach to mindfulness, that they are starting to include more of that part of the body as part of the relaxation technique, and seeing it becoming more mainstream for mindfulness masturbation to be taking place. It's even more so important. So getting familiar with the body, getting familiar with yourself, this is another way to do that, where you're just focusing on it. You don't even have to touch. Maybe you choose not to touch. Maybe it's just something that you are focusing on and getting familiar with yourself. All of those things are very, very important. And for research has actually shown that mindfulness masturbation, it actually helps people be able to process a lot of trauma, a lot of sensory issues and things. It's actually really helpful with that too. Of course, I'm not a therapist. In fact, I should have thrown this out there way earlier. I am not a licensed therapist. I'm an educator. I am a doctor of education. I'm a coach. I do a lot of consultations and things like that. And I work as a life coach and an intimacy coach, empowerment coach, in some capacities, even a business coach with others, but I am not a therapist. I don't treat or diagnose anything like that. So, and of course, here's the other chemical. So when you're masturbating, when you're having an orgasm and things like that, the other feel good chemical that is released in the brain is dopamine. So you have dopamine and oxytocin, both feel good neurochemicals associated with increased feelings of satisfaction. So that is who doesn't want more of that in their body, right? Like those are great chemicals to have in the body when they're coming from someplace as fun as sex or masturbation or an orgasm. Maybe you're one of the lucky ones that can do a hands-free orgasm. Those are always fun. So it's definitely worth taking time out to make solo play a regular practice, not maybe every day, but a regular practice for yourself. So let's talk a little bit about a body scan. So now that we've kind of come to the end, I've talked your ear off about stress and about masturbation and about different ways to combat it and how it affects the brain, yada, yada, yada. So here at this point, I'm going to say we're going to go through a mindfulness technique. This is not a masturbation related one. Sorry, everybody. But this is a very detailed chakra balancing body scan that I used to use regularly. I still use it in some of my classes today. I like doing these in person because I really enjoy seeing the bodies actually physically relax. It helps me to tone my voice as a body's relaxing. My tone tends to switch based on the energy in the room. And it's hard to do that on like this because I'm doing a recording. So you guys are going to probably get me in a little bit more of like my typical recording voice, but we'll just continue on. So I want you to make sure that if you are going to listen to this portion of the podcast, make sure you're not driving, make sure that you're kind of chilled out for the day, go relax, that sort of thing. Make sure you're not going to be interrupted. And I'm going to walk you through this and then we will end the podcast. And please let me know if you enjoy this little guided mindfulness meditation. So find a comfortable place, such as a chair or your bed, perhaps a couch or even a floor with a pillow under your head and legs for support. Wherever you are, begin breathing very slowly from your abdomen. Place your hands there and feel your stomach rising and falling with each breath. As you breathe in, allow your abdomen to rise and fill with the energy from the air around it. As you breathe out, allow your breath to take with it negative feelings, thoughts, and energies. Focus all your attention now on your breath. That's right. Breathe in through your nose and blow gently out through your mouth. Breathing slow and deep. Breathe in relaxation and out tension and stress. Feel yourself slowing way, way down. Notice how your slow breathing is beginning to calm your muscles. Your tension is melting away, and your breath now induces a state of deep relaxation. Breathing in and breathing out. In and out. Notice how you might be twice as relaxed as you were just a moment ago. Allow all the cares of the world to take care of themselves, all by themselves. As you're listening to the sound of my voice and the gentle music in the background, you can feel yourself drifting into a more relaxed state of being. Breathing in relaxation, blowing out the tensions. Any thoughts that were bothering you, just disappearing for all time. This is relaxation time just for you, and you can let all those thoughts go while you focus on just your breath. You feel a warm, wonderful sensation of relaxation in your body as you allow all the tensions to just float and drift away. I wonder if you can imagine someone you trust, or maybe it's the person from your fantasies, holding a large, soft feather as they are brushing it over your forehead. It is relaxing each and every muscle, every nerve in your forehead as it wipes away any lines of tension and brushes down over your eyelids as they become heavy and rest comfortably on your eyes. And it feels good to close your eyes. It feels safe. And just rest in the quiet of your own inner awareness. Allow your jaw to relax and hang loose and let go of any tensions you might be carrying there. You might notice a warm feeling spreading down your neck, all the way down your spine into your lower back, like a flow of gentle water, a stream of comfort. You feel peaceful, cool, safe, moving through you, and soon you get that feeling that you don't even have to be aware anymore as you let your body shift into automatic relaxation. You may feel this wonderful relaxation in your shoulders, spreading down your arms to your fingertips. Allow this feeling of comfort to enter your chest and relax all of your internal organs. Breathe into them. Breathe in light and energy, and let any tension there go. Feel the flow of comfort spreading through your stomach and down your legs, to your thighs, between your thighs, to your genitals, knees to calves, and all the way down to your toes. Every muscle in your legs are now limp and relaxed. Feel your entire body now, from your head to your toes, relax. You are now completely at ease. No one wanting anything from you. This time is just for you. Just awareness and sensation now. As each breath disappears, each thought dissolving into space, let each breath go, not holding on, in and out. Feel yourself expanding into light, merging now into your essential self. Breathe deeply and evenly. Let your mind and body rest. Let go of all cares and think only of total relaxation. Be aware now of the planet Earth. You might want to visualize it above you and see a beam of light starting at the top of your head and flowing down through your spine and your entire body right to the soles of your feet. Spreading out like roots of a tree, feel them going deep into the earth. Visualize as they go deeper, grounding you. You feel safe and secure as you know you are grounded to the earth. Visualize your base chakra, your energy center at the base of your spine. You see it as a red, warm, a glowing ball of light. It radiates survival instinct. It's related to smell, our connection with the physical earth, a sense of grounding. It connects to pleasure, pain, and sexuality. It is a driving, powerful force, giving us strength from within. See it as a rotating sphere of energy, pulsating positive, loving energy, and releasing any negative. Sit with it a while and see if you can feel it. The light may shift to that of a red blooming lotus blossom or a deep red ruby glowing within. Now move to the sacral chakra. This is your second chakra. You now see a glowing orange ball of radiating light filled with creative energy. It is related to taste, the inner child, artistic expression, vulnerability, spontaneity, and innocence. This chakra is also related to balanced sexuality and harmonious relationships. See it as a radiating, healing sphere, the same as you did with the base chakra, pulsating with positive energy. Be with this for a few moments as you release any blocked or negative energy. Move to your third chakra, just above the navel and below the chest. See a bright yellow glowing sun. This is the color of personal power, self-esteem, and ego. This is the chakra of self-control and enhanced energy, your power's center. Breathe into it and rotate your yellow sphere of energy. Now bring your energy up to the fourth chakra in the center of your chest. See a green sphere of energy, a glowing emerald of light, vibrating and rotating. It represents compassion and love, confidence, expansion, acceptance, openness, trust, and inspiration. Breathe into it and rotate your green sphere of energy. Now breathe into your fifth chakra. See blue at your throat chakra, perhaps a glowing spinning orb of ocean waves, or a deep rich sapphire glowing with refreshing vibes. This is your center for speech, communication, and self-expression, taking responsibility for your own needs, decision-making, personal authority, and manifesting creative impulses. Breathe in positive energy as this blue sphere turns and vibrates. Exhale any negative energy. Breathe into your sixth chakra, your third eye. Visualize it in the middle of your forehead. See the color indigo. It has to do with light and inner vision, unity, divine understanding, wisdom, intuition, and intelligence. See a rotating indigo sphere at the third eye. Breathe into it. Now, breathe into your seventh chakra, the chakra of knowledge, intuition, awareness of oneness with Source, meaning, devotion, inspiration, and conscious alignment with pure awareness. See the color violet, pulsing and vibrating in your third eye, like a rich, deep amethyst. Now see a line connecting all the chakras together. Feel yourself surrounded by a glowing bubble of iridescent light, pulling energy from the earth, the stars, the sun, and the moon. Feel a sense of balance, well-being, and comfort. This balancing will continue to heal your body. When you are ready, and only when you're ready, close one chakra at a time from the base up. Start with the first, at the base of your spine, and slowly move upward until all are closed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Feel yourself balanced with a sense of well-being now. You feel wonderful, joyful, and safe. Whenever you're ready, and only when you're ready, begin to come back, gently opening your eyes, allowing the light to adjust before widening your gaze. There is no rush. Simply take your time. You should feel refreshed, balanced, and at peace. Thank you so much for listening. And if you like this meditation, please let me know. I would love to record more of them for you. Namaste.